On our 5th anniversary, my husband walked into the gala hand in hand with his mistress, wearing the necklace he once promised me, announcing her pregnancy to the world. They thought I would break. But instead I smiled because that night wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of theirs. I dismantled him. Piece by piece I took his empire, his mistress and his name. Then I handed him divorce papers. Now all he has is regret. The atrium glowed like dawn caught in glass. I had designed it that way, sleek panes held by invisible cables, giving the illusion that the roof floated above us. When guests stepped inside, their heads tilted upward, a small gasp escaping their lips. That gasp was my favorite sound in the world. It was proof that my vision could hold them if only for a moment. It should have been a night of celebration. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of building not just cross enterprises with Damien, but a life I thought was strong, elegant, and enduring. Tonight, the new cultural wing of the city opened under my design, a ribbon cut in my name as much as his. Mrs. Cross. Rory, the event manager, hurried over, tablet clutched to his chest. His forehead glistened with stress. The mayor's entourage will arrive in 15. Security needs to sweep the lounge again and we're 2 hydrangea towers short. Shift the orchids from the east corridor to the stage, I answered calmly. Hydrangeas wash out under those LEDs anyway. His shoulders slumped with relief. You always know what to do. That was my role. Calm in chaos. Steel under glass. I smoothed my gown and moved through the crowd of donors, board members and socialites. Everywhere I walked, murmurs followed. Not about me, not yet, but about Damien. Where was the great Damien Cross, heir to an empire? He loved entrances. Vivian Cross, my mother-in-law, approached like royalty, draped in diamonds. Arya. Her voice was silk wrapped around steel. Look, restrained. Lovely, of course, but restrained. I prefer longevity over flash, I replied smoothly. Her lips curved, but her eyes were knives. Just remember not to design your marriage out of it. Before I could answer, she drifted away, leaving the scent of roses and disapproval. Was that a compliment or a dagger? Nora whispered at my side. My best friend, journalist and troublemaker, wore emerald silk and a grin sharp enough to cut glass. A dagger polished, I murmured back. Want me to bury her with an exposé? I keep files. Not tonight. I allowed myself a small smile. Tonight is supposed to be about celebration. Nora studied me, eyes narrowing. You've checked the entrance 3 times. Don't tell me you're nervous. I'm not, I said. She raised a brow. Then Damien is late and that's making you, not nervous. I didn't answer because she wasn't wrong. Lucas arrived then, steady as ever in his dark suit. My younger brother, lawyer, protector. He leaned close. You're clenching your jaw. He's late on purpose. He wants an entrance, I agreed softly. Then don't react, Lucas warned. You're better than that. The doors opened. Conversations stilled. Cameras turned. And Damien Cross walked in hand with Selena Vega. She wore white silk that glimmered under the atrium lights, her dark hair a perfect contrast. Around her throat was a necklace, my necklace. The one I had designed, platinum and moonstone, a piece I thought Damien meant for me tonight. Instead, it rested against her collarbone like it had always belonged there. Gasps rippled through the room. My chest tightened but my face remained calm. If the roof cracked, if the cables strained, you didn't let the building see you flinch. Ladies and gentlemen, Damien's voice boomed as cameras surged forward. Before we begin, I have an announcement. He pulled Selena closer, his hands splayed protectively over her stomach. Tonight marks 5 years with my wife, Arya. We've built so much together. But life has a way of surprising us twice. He paused, smiled at Selena, then looked back at the crowd. Selena and I are expecting. The room fractured into gasps, whispers, applause tinged with scandal. I felt the floor tilt, but I anchored myself in steel. I would not give them a spectacle. I would not break. The mayor's aide stepped forward awkwardly, trying to steer the event back on track. Mrs. Cross, perhaps you'd like to say a few words about the cultural wing? Yes. Words could be weapons sharper than any diamond. I walked to the dais, every step deliberate. The cameras turned to me and the room hushed, waiting for my collapse. I smiled. This building, I began, my voice even, steady, was designed with 3 principles. Openness, support, and light. Openness because culture belongs to everyone. Support because nothing that looks effortless truly is. And light. My eyes lingered on Damien, on Selene, on the moonstone necklace glinting at her throat. Because under it, truth reveals itself, whether we want it to or not. A ripple of recognition swept through the crowd. Cameras clicked like thunder. I held their gaze, unflinching. Let them think I was humiliated. Let them whisper. Let Damien think he'd destroyed me. He hadn't. He'd just laid the first stone of the empire I would build on his ruins. The morning after the gala, every newspaper had my face on its front page. Some captured me at the dais, smiling serenely under the glass canopy I had designed. Others chose the frame where Damien stood with Selene, his hand pressed against her flat stomach. The headlines ranged from sympathetic to cruel. Society's most elegant betrayal. Arya Lang holds her head high. Cross airs double life exposed at gala. Selene Vega, saint or snake? The comments online were worse. Pity, derision, admiration, mockery, all tangled like weeds. But amid it all, one truth stood clear. My name, Arya Monroe Cross, was suddenly larger than Damien's. That was not a loss. That was leverage. I sat at the breakfast table in my father's townhouse, coffee cooling beside untouched toast. Lucas spread newspapers across the table like case files. You need to file for divorce immediately, he said, jabbing a headline. He humiliated you in public. We can argue mental cruelty, we can freeze his assets. You don't owe him another day of dignity. I sipped my coffee, ignoring the bitter taste. Divorce is too small. Lucas froze, brow furrowed. Too small. I leaned back. A divorce ends the scandal. I want to end him. Arya. His voice lowered, a mix of warning and worry. You sound like a woman who knows she's underestimated. Lucas's jaw worked, but he said nothing. He knew me well enough not to argue when I was already designing. By noon, Vivian summoned me to the Cross estate. The butler opened the door as if he pitied me, as if I were a widow arriving in black. She received me in her drawing room, diamonds at her throat, teacup poised like a weapon. You've handled yourself with grace, she began, her tone implying surprise. But it's time to put this embarrassment to rest. File for divorce. I'll see to it the settlement is generous. Generous. I echoed. That sounds like charity. It's dignity, she corrected. Do you want to spend the next year being mocked in every drawing room? Every gala? I folded my hands in my lap. What I want, Vivian, is respect. I will not give Damien the satisfaction of discarding me. I will not vanish quietly while Selene plays at being mistress turned wife. Her eyes narrowed. You think you can fight him? No, I said, letting the silence stretch. I will outlast him. For the first time, Vivian faltered. She set her teacup down too hard, a crack running through the porcelain. That evening, Damien's move became public. The tabloids caught him and Selene walking hand in hand into her penthouse, laughing like teenagers. She wore my necklace still, flaunting it like a crown. He carried groceries of all things, bread and fruit, as if domestic bliss could erase betrayal. Nora burst into my apartment without knocking, her laptop under her arm. Arya, you need to see this. She pulled up financial records, her fingers flying across the keys. Cross enterprises, Cayman accounts. Hidden subsidiaries, shell companies, offshore slush funds. I've been chasing these threads for months. But after last night, I dug deeper. Numbers scrolled across the screen like falling dominoes. He's been siphoning millions, Nora said. Moving them into Selene's charity projects. That woman isn't just his lover. She's his laundromat. I watched the data with a calmness that startled even me. Print everything. Triple copies. Nora studied me. Most women would be sobbing in bed right now. Most women aren't me, I said softly. Lucas cornered me later in the week. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. Arya, I'm serious. If you stay in this marriage, you risk more than your reputation. He could drag you into his crimes. He could ruin you. I placed a hand on his arm. Lucas, do you remember when I built my first model bridge? He frowned. The one that collapsed under 5 pounds of pressure? Yes. And then I rebuilt it. Twice as strong. I learned that collapse isn't failure. It's data. Damien thinks he humiliated me. He thinks I'll crumble. I looked him squarely in the eye. But I am gathering data. And I will rebuild. Stronger. Taller. Over him. Lucas exhaled, shaking his head. You're terrifying when you talk like this. Good, I said. At night I scrolled through photos of the gala. In every frame, Damien looked victorious, Selena luminous. Me. I looked calm, dignified, untouchable. The public thought I was broken. The Cross family thought I was defeated. They were all wrong. This wasn't the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of my war. I closed my laptop, my reflection faint against the black screen. Divorce is mercy, I whispered. And mercy is wasted on Damien Hale Cross. I would stay. I would smile. And I would take everything. The gala was for children's hospitals, though you wouldn't have known it from the way the women dripped in diamonds and the men measured power by the cut of their suits. The chandeliers threw light like shattered stars. Everywhere I turned, whispers followed. My name had become a currency, traded in scandal and speculation. I'd expected the looks by now. Pity wrapped in envy, curiosity sharpened with cruelty. But tonight was different. Tonight Selena Vega was also in the room. Her presence spread like perfume, sweet on the surface, suffocating underneath. She wore pale lavender silk that clung delicately to her frame, her hair curled like she'd just stepped out of a magazine. She looked every inch the fragile saint society wanted her to be. And yet, when her eyes met mine across the ballroom, something in them glittered like glass ready to cut. I didn't avoid her gaze. I lifted my champagne glass instead. A silent acknowledgement. A silent challenge. Nora leaned in from my side whispering, there she is. The woman of the hour. Or the scandal of the century depending on which paper you read. Both, I murmured. Do you want me to intercept her? Nora's grin was sharp. I've always wanted to trip someone carrying an entire tray of hors d'oeuvres. No, I said, smoothing the skirt of my gown. I want her to come to me. And she did. Selena glided across the floor, Damien in tow. He wore his charm like a uniform, tailored black suit, bow tie just loose enough to look rakish, smile tuned for cameras. But his grip on Selena's waist was too tight, his smile stretched too thin. He was trying too hard. Aria, Selena greeted, her voice soft, sweet enough to rot teeth. You look lovely tonight. Selena. I offered her a polite smile, measured and cool. So do you? Lavender suits you. Her hand brushed the necklace at her throat. The moonstone I designed, the one Damien should have placed around my neck. This? Just something Damien insisted I wear. He's so thoughtful. My gaze lingered a moment too long, enough for her to see the steel behind my calm. Then I sipped my champagne. Yes. He's always had a weakness for displays. Her lashes fluttered as though she hadn't understood, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. She was calculating, weighing my words. Damien cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Perhaps we should. But Selena touched his arm, silencing him like a pet she'd trained. No, darling. Let me speak with Aria for a moment. She turned back to me, her smile still porcelain. I should thank you. You kept his seat warm so faithfully. Without you, Damien and I may never have found our way back to each other. Nora stiffened beside me, ready to pounce. I touched her wrist lightly, not yet. I tilted my head. You're welcome. Selena blinked. She hadn't expected that. You don't seem angry. Why would I be? I asked softly. After all, you've taken the place everyone thought belonged to me. But tell me, Selena. I let my eyes travel the length of her gown, her necklace, her fragile pose. Do you ever wonder how long that place will last? Her lips parted. For a moment the sweet facade cracked. I leaned in, close enough for only her to hear. Empires built on infatuation rarely survive. Damien's business is delicate. A few missing investors, a few wrong headlines, and everything crumbles. She pulled back slightly, searching my face. What are you implying? Nothing, I said smoothly, straightening. Only that you should enjoy every moment you have. They vanish faster than you think. Damien's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering in his gaze. Selena tightened her grip on his arm. For all her fragility, I could feel the claws beneath. Excuse me, I said with a smile, brushing past them. The children's ward needs more than gossip tonight. Later, in the quiet of my study, Nora spread files across my desk. Her laptop glowed with spreadsheets and names. Offshore accounts, she said, tapping a screen. Shell companies in the Caymans. Damien funneled millions through Celine's so-called charities. If the regulators catch wind of this, cross-enterprises could sink. I skimmed the data, my finger tracing the lines of numbers like they were blueprints. And Celine knows? Doubtful. She thinks she's untouchable because Damien shields her. But she's too naive to understand that she's also his liability. I closed the laptop. Good. Let her think she's winning. Nora gave me a long look. Arya, most people in your position would be broken. Crying, hiding, begging for scraps of dignity. I'm not most people, I said simply. She smiled, though there was worry in it. Remind me never to get on your bad side. I lay awake that night, the city lights spilling across my ceiling. My phone buzzed with another headline. Damien Cross and Selena Vega. Society's new golden couple? I read the article slowly, noting every word, every photograph. Let the world crown them king and queen. Let them bask in their victory. Because when the ground gave way beneath their feet, the fall would be spectacular. And I would be the one holding the blueprint. The storm didn't break with thunder. It broke with ink. Nora's article went live 3 days after the gala, on a Tuesday morning when investors skimmed their phones over breakfast. A small outlet strategically chosen. Not a screaming tabloid headline but a quiet, surgical piece titled, When Charity Masks Something Else. Cross Enterprises and the Vega Foundation. It didn't accuse. It questioned. Where exactly had Selena Vega's charity funds gone? Why did so many of the foundation's donors trace back to shell companies with ties to Damien Cross? Why were the financial reports signed in a rush, with missing line items? The article was polite, almost deferential. But polite suspicion travels faster than scandal. By noon, 3 investors had called their advisors. By Wednesday, a European partner had pulled out of a deal. By Friday, Cross Enterprises' stock ticked downward. Not a crash, not yet, but a steady leak that smelled of blood. Lucas spread the printouts across my kitchen counter like a lawyer preparing a war map. His tie was loose, sleeves rolled up. This is gold, Arya. His voice was sharper than usual. Your leak plus Nora's piece. It's exactly the paper trail I needed. Damien funneled corporate money into Celine's foundation, and it won't survive scrutiny. I can file lawsuits in 3 jurisdictions tomorrow. I poured him coffee. Not tomorrow. Today. He looked up, startled. You want to strike that fast? Yes, I said. Speed is everything. The moment they start scrambling for cover, we have to be ahead. He studied me a moment, then nodded. I'll draft the filings tonight. And Arya. Yes. This isn't just revenge anymore. You understand that, don't you? These suits could cost Cross Enterprises billions. I held his gaze. That's the point. Selena broke first. 2 weeks after Nora's article, I saw her at a fundraiser dinner. Her face was pale beneath the chandelier light, her smile brittle. She didn't approach me this time. She was too busy whispering frantically into Damien's ear, her manicured nails digging into his sleeve. I didn't need to hear her words to know their shape. Fix her. Stop her. Make her pay. Later, Nora confirmed it with a smirk over wine. Selena begged him last night, she said, sliding her phone across the table with a grainy photo, Damien and Selena in the back of a car, her expression twisted in fury. She wants him to go on the offensive. He told her he'd handle you. I swirled my glass. Then he'll make mistakes. Confident. Certain, I said. Desperation always leaves fingerprints. The next week, Damien made his move. He ordered his PR team to issue a press release. Cross Enterprises assures all stakeholders of its financial integrity. Baseless allegations will be dealt with swiftly. Baseless. The word made me laugh. He also tried to cut me off at the board level, circulating whispers that I was unstable, vengeful, that my family ties made me biased. But he underestimated just how tired his own board members had become. I learned this firsthand when one of them, a silver-haired man named Arthur Yates, requested a private coffee. We met in a quiet cafe far from Midtown. He looked around nervously before leaning in. Mrs. Cross, he said, voice low, some of us on the board, we've had enough. Damien's throwing money into that woman's fantasies. Investors are spooked. If you're preparing something, his eyes flicked to the manila folder under my arm. You won't be alone. I smiled faintly. That's very wise of you, Mr. Yates. He hesitated, then added, it's not loyalty to you. It's survival. Of course, I said. But survival often becomes loyalty in time. Celine's pressure on Damien grew visible. At events, she clung to him tighter, her voice rising when he strayed too far. Her fragile persona was cracking at the edges, desperation bleeding through. One evening, I lingered in the lobby of a hotel after a board dinner and overheard them. Damien's voice, low and tight. Celine's sharp as broken glass. She's making you look like a fool. Celine snapped. You promised me I'd be safe. Arya knows this business better than you think, Damien muttered. She's not easy to silence. Then destroy her. Celine hissed. Pause. Then Damien's voice, heavy with something I almost mistook for regret. You don't understand. If she wanted, she could destroy me. I stepped into the elevator before they noticed me. My reflection in the mirrored walls was calm, composed. But inside, a spark of satisfaction warmed me. Even Damien was beginning to see the truth. Lucas filed the lawsuits the next morning. By noon, the news was everywhere. Cross Enterprises was facing multiple legal challenges regarding financial misconduct and misuse of funds. Share prices slipped further. Damien held a tense press conference, Celine beside him looking wan and tragic in white lace. Our enemies are trying to smear us, Damien declared, voice firm. But we will not falter. Behind the cameras, I watched silently. His hands clenched the podium just a little too tightly. Celine's eyes darted nervously. And the board members, Arthur Yates among them, looked restless, calculating. The cracks in the empire had begun to show. And I intended to widen them. The first rumor surfaced on a Monday morning, wrapped in tragedy. Celine Vega suffers miscarriage amid cross-family turmoil. The headline burned across every news site, splashed over glossy tabloids and whispered about on social feeds. The article quoted an unnamed close source, claiming Celine had been fragile, under unbearable stress due to Arya Cross's constant hostility, and that the emotional strain had cost her Damien's child. Within hours, hashtags bloomed. Hashtag justice for Celine. Hashtag cruel Arya. Hashtag broken mother. And just like that, the woman who had been ridiculed weeks ago became a victim again. I sat in my study, the article glowing on my laptop screen. My reflection flickered in the glass. Calm, controlled, but my pulse steady with anger. Nora burst in without knocking, her phone in hand. She's insane, she hissed. Look at this, she staged photos outside the hospital. Wheelchair, blanket over her lap, Damien at her side looking devastated. Arya, she's playing this like a soap opera. I clicked through the photos. Damien jaw tight, pushing Celine in a wheelchair. Celine pale, her hand resting dramatically over her stomach. She's not pregnant, I said flatly. Nora blinked. You're sure? Yes. I closed the laptop. Because I had her scans checked weeks ago. It had been almost too easy. When Celine flaunted her supposed pregnancy, waving glossy ultrasound prints around like trophies, I hadn't believed her for a moment. So I'd called in a favor from Dr. Lin, a quiet man with little love for the Vega family. A quick look at the prints told him everything. Celine had forged them. They weren't even her scans. I'd tucked the proof away, waiting for the day she would overplay her hand. That day had come. Lucas arrived that evening, storming into my apartment with newspapers tucked under his arm. He slapped one onto the table, his eyes blazing. Do you see this? She's dragging your name through the mud. Investors are rattled. Damien's acting like a grieving father. He'll milk this for sympathy. I leaned back in my chair. Good. Let him. The higher they climb on a lie, the harder they fall. He stared at me, then slowly smiled. You already have something, don't you? I opened my drawer and slid the envelope across to him. Inside were the real scans, dated and signed with Dr. Lin's testimony. Proof that Celine had stolen someone else's medical files to stage her charade. Lucas let out a low whistle. Arya, this is brutal. She wanted war, I said coolly. Now she'll have it. The next morning, social media was a battlefield. Celine's fanatics painted me as a monster. Heartless witch. Jealous ex-wife. Murderer in designer heels. A photo of me leaving the board meeting had gone viral, captioned, "This is the face of the woman who killed Celine's baby." I should have been furious. Tad, I smiled. They were making it too easy. That night, Lucas released the documents to the press. Nora published the full exposé. The headline was simple, devastating. Exclusive. Proof Selena Vega faked pregnancy, forged medical scans. Within minutes, the tide turned. The betrayal hit harder because the public had just finished crying for her. Outrage curdled into mockery. Tweets flooded timelines. She forged a miscarriage? Who does that? Poor Damien. First he funds her, now this circus. Arya warned us. She was right all along. Hashtags flipped. Hashtag Selena the liar. Hashtag Damien the fool. Hashtag justice for Arya. I watched it unfold from my couch, sipping tea as the empire of sympathy Selena had built crumbled overnight. Selena herself broke first. Paparazzi caught her outside her penthouse, screaming at Damien. You were supposed to protect me. Fix this. Fix it. Her mascara streaked down her face, her hands clawing at his suit jacket. Damien shoved the cameras aside, jaw clenched, but his silence was louder than her shrieks. The video spread everywhere, Damien's once flawless image collapsing with every replay. That night I stood by my window looking out over the city lights. Selena had tried to break me with her lies, to paint me as cruel and jealous. Instead she had shattered herself and dragged Damien down with her. The cracks in their empire had widened into fissures. And soon the whole thing would collapse. The walls of Damien's empire didn't crumble with a whisper this time. They cracked with a roar. After Selena's miscarriage scandal backfired, he vanished from the public eye for 3 days. No statements, no staged photos, not even a sighting at his beloved golf club. The gossip pages buzzed. Had the golden couple fallen apart? The answer arrived in the form of a leaked video. Selena and Damien in their penthouse, voices sharp and furious. You ruined me. Damien's shout echoed off the marble walls. Do you have any idea what you've cost me? Selena's laugh was harsh, hysterical. Me? You were the one stealing money from the company. You were the one funding me with embezzled funds. Don't you dare pin this on me, Damien. Damien's voice dropped to a hiss. Keep your mouth shut. If you expose me, I'll drag you down with me, Selena snapped. You think I don't have proof? Try me. The video cut off there, grainy and shaky, but it was enough. Enough to show the world the cracks had split into chasms. Lucas played it on repeat in my office, shaking his head with disbelief. Arya, do you realize what this means? They're eating each other alive. Good, I said quietly. Let them choke. Nora leaned against the wall, scrolling through her phone. We don't even need to lift a finger right now. The press is having a field day. Damien the thief, Selena the liar. This is better than any soap opera. But I wasn't satisfied with better. I wanted final. No, I said firmly. We finish this. Once and for all. Lucas's brows rose. You have something planned? I slid a folder across the table. Inside were the documents I'd gathered for months. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, falsified charity receipts. The embezzlement trail Damien thought he had buried. We hold a press conference, I said. And we bury him with the truth. Damien must have sensed it because he came to me that night. I found him waiting outside my apartment building, looking nothing like the man who had once strutted through boardrooms. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, his hair unkempt. Arya, he rasped when I stepped out of the car. I crossed my arms. What do you want? He flinched. Once I would have said those words with softness. Now they cut like knives. Don't do this, he begged. Don't destroy me. You'll destroy the family name. Everything our fathers built. I tilted my head. You destroyed it yourself. I'm just turning on the lights. He stepped closer, desperation radiating off him. Please. I'll leave Selena. I'll fix everything. Just, don't humiliate me like this. I held his gaze for a long moment, then whispered, You humiliated yourself the day you chose her over me. And I walked past him without looking back. The press conference was held 2 days later at the Grand Hyatt Ballroom. Cameras lined the walls, reporters buzzing like flies over honey. I stepped onto the stage in a tailored black suit, Lucas at my side, Nora stationed in the front row. The air thrummed with anticipation. I didn't speak long. I didn't need to. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice calm, steady. 4 months, Damian Cross has deceived not only me but every investor and partner in Cross Enterprises. He has embezzled millions of dollars to fund personal indulgences, including the fraudulent schemes of Selena Vega. Tonight I present the evidence. One by one the documents flashed on the projector screen. Bank statements, wire transfers, doctored reports. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked furiously. And then the final blow, Selena's forged pregnancy scans. She staged a miscarriage to manipulate public sympathy, I said coldly. This is the woman Damian Cross chose to defend. This is the truth they both tried to bury. The room erupted into chaos. Reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing, investors storming out to make frantic calls. But through it all I stood steady, my voice cutting through the storm. The Cross family deserves better. The public deserves better. And now the truth is free. By midnight the internet had exploded. Clips of my speech went viral, hashtags trended worldwide. Cross Enterprises stock plummeted like a stone, wiping billions from its market value overnight. Headlines screamed, Aria Cross exposes husband's crimes. Damian and Selena, empire of lies. Cross Enterprises in free fall. It was the collapse I had dreamed of, the reckoning they had earned. The only person who didn't gloat was Vivian Cross. She came to me the next morning, unannounced, her pearls askew, her usual composure cracked. She looked older, smaller, her eyes red-rimmed. Aria, she said, her voice trembling. Please. You've made your point. You've destroyed Damian, exposed Selena. But the family name, our legacy, it's all crumbling. I'm begging you. Help me save it. For a moment I almost pitied her. This woman who had sneered at me for years, who had whispered poison into Damian's ear, now stood before me with hands clasped, desperate. But pity was a luxury I no longer afforded. I straightened my shoulders. No, Vivian. I won't save what you helped corrupt. The Cross name will burn with Damian and you'll watch it happen. Her face went pale. You can't. I can, I said sharply. And I already have. She swayed, clutching the doorframe as if the weight of my words had struck her physically. For the first time I saw her not as my enemy but as something smaller. Powerless. And it was liberating. That night, as the markets closed and the Cross Empire collapsed, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood by the window. The city glittered below me, alive and indifferent. Damian had collapsed. Selena was finished. The elders were powerless. Me. For the first time in years I was free. The boardroom smelled of polished mahogany and tension. Cross Enterprises' shareholder meeting was always a grand affair, usually orchestrated by Damian with showmanship worthy of a politician. But today it was different. Today the room buzzed with unease, shareholders whispering in corners, journalists camped outside like vultures. And at the center of it all, I sat calmly, my hands folded, Lucas at my side. Lucas leaned toward me, his voice low but brimming with satisfaction. We have them. Between your shares, mine, and the block of silent allies you've convinced, you're sitting on 51%. Damian's finished. My lips curved faintly. Then let's not keep him waiting. The doors slammed open. Damian strode in, Selena trailing behind him in oversized sunglasses and a white designer dress, her hand clutching his arm as though she still held sway. He didn't. The murmurs grew louder. Everyone had seen the headlines. Damian's embezzlement, Selena's forged scans. The empire was already crumbling. I was here to deliver the final blow. Order, the chairman called, his gavel striking. Today's agenda. A vote of confidence in Mr. Damian Cross's leadership as CEO. Damian sneered at me across the table. You think you can humiliate me in front of my own board? You've already dragged our name through the mud. You won't win. Lucas's voice rang clear. On the contrary, Mr. Cross. We're not here to debate rumors, we're here with votes. The tally began. Hands rose. Proxy votes were read. And with each declaration, Damian's face drained of color. 51% against, the chairman concluded at last. Mr. Cross, you are hereby removed as CEO of Cross Enterprises. Silence. Then a ripple of gasps and the clicking frenzy of hidden recorders. I stood. Effective immediately, I will assume the role. The company will not be steered by greed and scandal any longer. It was done. The moment the gavel struck, Selena's composure cracked. She yanked off her sunglasses, eyes wide, voice shrill. You can't do this. Damien is the rightful heir. He's the cross name, not you. You're nothing without him. Her outburst only sealed her fate. Cameras hidden behind handbags flashed as shareholders discreetly recorded the spectacle. Damien tried to hush her, but she shoved him aside. Do something, Damien. Fix this. Tell them I'll be their new face. Enough, he snapped, shoving her hand away. For the first time, he didn't defend her. It didn't matter. By the following week, Selena had vanished from the city's gossip pages. Whispers said she'd fled abroad, debts nipping at her heels, sponsorships cancelled, her acting career reduced to memes. She was done. 2 weeks later, the city's financial papers announced it in bold type. Arya Cross, youngest female CEO in Metro City history. The photo showed me stepping out of the headquarters, dressed in a Navy power suit, Lucas and Nora at my side. My hair gleamed under the cameras, my smile calm, poised. The coverage was relentless. The press no longer painted me as Damien's cast-aside wife. They called me strategist, visionary, survivor. Overnight, I became not just a woman who endured betrayal but one who rose from it. Board members who once dismissed me now lined up to shake my hand. Investors who had fled returned cautiously, reassured by my reforms. And for the first time, the name Cross Enterprises wasn't synonymous with Damien. It was mine. I should have known he wouldn't stay silent. One evening as I left the office, Damien was waiting at the curb. No cameras this time, no audience, just a broken man. His suit hung loose, his eyes hollow, his arrogance stripped away. Arya, he said, voice ragged. Please. Hear me out. I paused, arms crossed. You've already said enough. He stepped closer, desperation in every line of his face. I made mistakes. I let Selena manipulate me. But I've lost everything now. My title, my company, her. All I have left is you. Please. Can we start over? For a moment, the old ache flickered in my chest. The man I had once loved, who I had built dreams with, stood before me again. Not as a titan but as a beggar. I steadied my breath. You chose Selena over me. You chose greed over loyalty. And now you want forgiveness. His voice cracked. Yes, I was wrong. I need you, Arya. I looked him in the eye, my tone quiet but merciless. No, Damien. You need me because I won. Not because you love me. He flinched as though I had struck him. I stepped into my car, the door closing with finality. Through the glass, I saw him standing there, small, powerless, watching the woman he had betrayed rise higher than he ever could. And for the first time I felt nothing but freedom. The date slipped by unnoticed until Lucas pointed it out. Arya, he said softly as we wrapped up the quarterly review, you realize what today is? I looked up from the documents. The calendar on the corner of my desk glowed with quiet irony. Our wedding anniversary. The 6th. Had the marriage survived? For a heartbeat, old memories tugged at me. The silk gown, the vows whispered, the dreams I once thought were eternal. Then I exhaled, letting them scatter like ash. It's just another day, I said. But fate had a cruel sense of theater. When I stepped out of headquarters that evening, the street was hushed with twilight. My driver held the car door open, but someone blocked the path. Damien. No cameras, no Selena clinging to his arm, no board members to prop him up. Just Damien, tired, worn, shadows etched deep beneath his eyes. His suit no longer screamed wealth. It sagged as though even the fabric had given up on him. Arya, he said hoarsely. I froze, heart steady. Damien. He shifted on his feet as though the weight of my gaze alone was unbearable. Do you know what today is? I do, I replied coolly. He laughed bitterly. 6 years. 6 years ago I married the only woman who ever truly loved me. And his voice broke. I threw her away. The words hung in the air, raw and desperate. He stepped closer, his hands trembling at his sides. I lost everything, Arya. Selena, she's gone. The company, the respect, even my family, they've all abandoned me. And when I look back, the only thing that mattered was you. You, Arya. You were my anchor. And I destroyed it with my own hands. For a fleeting second, I saw the man I once loved. The man who held me on our first anniversary as though nothing in the world could break us. But illusions were dangerous. I had learned that lesson the hardest way. I held his gaze, my voice calm, unwavering. You're wrong, Damien. His brow furrowed. Wrong. You didn't lose me to Selena. You lost me to yourself. He blinked, stunned. I stepped closer, my heels clicking against the pavement, every word deliberate. You lost me the moment you chose betrayal over loyalty. You lost me when you decided my love was disposable. You lost me when you destroyed yourself with greed and arrogance. Tears welled in his eyes. Arya, please. No, my tone cut through his plea like steel. I don't hate you anymore, Damien. I don't even love you. You're just someone I used to know. And that's the saddest truth of all. I reached into my bag and pulled out a cream-colored envelope. I held it between us, my hand steady. He frowned, confused. What's this? Divorce papers, I said softly. The color drained from his face. No. Arya, no. My tone remained calm, but each word was a blade. You think you're standing here because you love me? Oh, Damien. You're here because you've lost everything else. You didn't lose me to Selena, you lost me to yourself. His knees buckled, his hand clutching the papers as though they burned. Arya, please, I'll change. I'll do anything. I can't live without you. Tears shimmered in his eyes, but I felt no pull, no ache. Only clarity. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. You should have thought of that before you destroyed the only woman who truly loved you. Now all that's left is goodbye. He tried to reach for me, his lips trembling, but his grip closed on air. I turned. The driver opened the car door and I paused at the threshold, turning back one last time. You wanted a kingdom, Damien. Now look at you, standing in ruins, begging for scraps of a love you burned. He reached out as though to catch me, but his hand fell limply to his side. I slipped into the car, the door shutting with finality. Through the glass, I saw him staring after me, alone on the curb, swallowed by the night. The city lights stretched ahead, alive with promise. My reflection in the window was no longer the betrayed wife, no longer the broken woman. I was Arya Cross, the youngest CEO in the city, the woman who had risen from betrayal to power, and the woman who had finally said goodbye. And this time it was forever. The end.